Okay, so today we are with my new friend Michou Olivera. And Michou, pleasure to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Michou Olivera, she's a self-realization and psychedelic guide, and she's focusing mostly it's on magic mushrooms or psilocybin. And so I have been reading all kinds of research recently on how psilocybin is being fast tracked by FDA because of all the research around the world, including this country, that's showing just tremendous possibilities of working with people that have struggled with PTSD, depression, anxiety, OCD, and addiction. And they're having the research is showing that they're having results like they've never seen before. So you work in this field. You've also had an experience. So tell us a little bit about you, Michou, and what you do and how you found psychedelics as a healing modality.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be able to speak and to share my story and to have you ask me to be part of this. So thank you for allowing me to speak and to share a little bit about myself. My name is Michou Olivera. My pronouns are probably she and her. I'm 52 years old, and I'm from a little town called Half Moon Bay, California. I'm now living in East Hampton, Massachusetts, with my wife. And I found psychedelics when I was much younger, 15 years old, very much into the Grateful Dead out in California. It was a thing to go around and see the dead and to take psychedelics at the dead shows. And I learned at an earlier age that they really helped to connect me to parts of myself that were like kind of like lost or like not really fully discovered yet. And I really appreciated the heart space that they opened up for me. And they were shown to me to be safe early on. And my friends and I would lie, we would take lots of different, LSD and mushrooms together. I was always the person to help those around me that were failing in their experiences or crashing and burning, bad trips, so to speak. I've always been that person to help people to understand where they're needing help and to show up for them in those ways. And so I find it ironic that as an adult, after doing my own personal work, which I'll fast forward to here in a minute, I'm now someone who holds space for people psychedelically for their growth, for their knowledge, their education, for their journeys, for their integration, big important thing, and for their consciousness expansion support. I have done this work myself, and so I feel extremely pulled to now offer myself to people who find me who are seeking to basically uh, either expand consciousness or do some deep diving into some trauma, whether that's generational or this current lifetime, or to heal from addiction, heal from any kind of thing that basically sets them back and holds them from themselves. So mushrooms specifically have shown me in my own personal experiences to really expand and to move yourself away from areas where you're basically held with a conventional set of tools, so to speak. I
Mhm.
can share a little bit about my own story. Was I was enjoyed psychedelics for a while when I was a teenager, and then unfortunately lost my connection to them in my later teens and 20s, and found myself close related to alcohol. That was the easier thing to have all the time, and so it was basically my chosen escape tool from what I didn't understand of how to navigate within myself in my life or in my world around me. My past traumas I had zero access to. I did not know how to go into those. I was seeing therapists for normal psychotherapy my entire life. I was always very angry because I didn't have the voice to speak to what was happening to me. I didn't know how to advocate for being a woman who looked like a boy and then be having my ass kicked just for that, for leaving the house and being different, right? And then my name, of course, on top of that. So lots of things that were said against me. Alcohol was really quickly easy to get into. Also, smoking cigarettes. Also, smoking lots of cannabis. So that became like the trifecta of things to disappear into and just
Yeah.
become your addictions, right? And to live your traumas. Basically, I came from I don't know. I've seemed really I don't know, kind of commonplace for people to just live their lives based upon what happened to them, right? And to embrace those things. And what I learned was that you just got accepted by what happened to you almost in a sympathetic way, but not in any good way, though. And most of my relationships were built around that kind of trauma, that kind of past experiences. So pretty much lived my life 30 plus some years, 35 years in this alcohol, nicotine, cannabis addiction space. A lot of trauma, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of PTSD, just a lot of unresolved trauma, and just living that life basically. And was reconnected to mushrooms at a time where I was actually in a big crisis in my life. I had injured both of my shoulders. I had suffered a kitchen accident actually and slipped down the stairs on my birthday, 2017, November 23rd. I slipped down the stairs and literally slipped and fell. Classic accident, grabbed the handrail on one side and couldn't stop. And by the time I did stop, both my hands were behind me. I'm on the stairs. I'm totally screwed and I can't work. And so this is what, 2017. By 2018, I'm now homeless. Just had moved all the way to Massachusetts from the West Coast. And I'm now having to go back to California to try to get surgery. My life is upside down. It's in the shambles. And I happened to meet somebody who was a grower of mushrooms, and I was reconnected to those mushrooms from early 2018, and obviously still. But I had started taking an eighth of those one time a month just because it felt really good to connect to my heart again, to have just connection and almost an enhancement after the fact. And so I started this in 2018, and by the fall of 2018, I had woken up one morning and just didn't want to drink the normal 6 pack plus a day. Just woke up and didn't want to do that day. Instead, I wanted to do more self care, do more checking in with myself, and like getting to know where I was. And it was almost like someone had flipped the switch in my brain, and I had understood more and more each time I did a bigger dose, like a big macro dose, that once a month, that time was really spent connecting in ways to myself that I'd never done before. And it was leading me also to have intuition around what was available to me in my circumstances, because I was now facing homelessness. I didn't know what to do. I was having to really act on my feet and just really put myself in places strategically around the country to get care for my shoulders because I didn't have access to that. And I started thinking outside of my, I guess, my logical brain. I started thinking with my mushroom brain, my psychedelic brain, and it started to help me manifest things into my life that I needed to get from one thing to the other. Help by the form of people that were following me from Instagram because I was a butch girl that posted selfies because I have tattoos and some muscles a little bit. And so I had a little tiny bit of a following of people that thought it was amusing that I was who I was, right? So I started to do these things, but mushrooms were always the key thing. And I would always post, I'd go on live and I would post videos about overcoming adversity. Like, here I am, I'm homeless, I'm bouncing around the country by sheer will. These things are happening to me. Like, my mom's not helping them, my parents aren't helping me, but I'm manifesting where I need to go and I'm posting it all. I'm taking mushrooms sporadically and I'm realizing there's a correlation to my being able to manifest in mushrooms. And so I'm having also, I had these two experiences on about 4.5 grams of golden teachers that were complete spiritual awakening, enlightenment situations that changed my life basically. The first one was I had vision, like literal visions of my future and speaking in front of a group of people about mushrooms and about how to have psychedelic experiences safely, how to navigate the integration that's going to come when you're having questions and all these things are going to come through for you about how, what does it mean to think this and what does it mean to have this realization. And but I'm watching this from behind myself, like third person. Then I'm seeing these sentinel, these beings, they're like beams of light, but they're beings, and they're telling me that I'm supposed to help people with mushrooms. I'm supposed to teach people. I'm supposed to show the way of the ritual of taking them and then using the messages to improve your life, to better yourself, to manifest the life of your dreams, basically. And they're saying, you know the way, so just go with this way. You know the way. And all I could feel was this feeling of like absolute peace and calm of like, oh, I know the way. Everything's fine, actually. Everything's totally fine. And everything made sense. All of a sudden, it was like, I just wasn't afraid anymore. All the fear that I had about not knowing anything or not understanding what was true, that was all of a sudden in my being. It was an awareness. It was like an awareness beyond any awareness that I ever had in my life. And I've always been psychic when I was a kid. Like, I always had knowing, which I think partly was probably why I wanted to drink so much, because I just didn't want to know all the shit that I knew, and I was sick of getting my ass kicked and having to deal with that. So drinking was really easy to do, but Now I'm being shown more things of the pieces that I already had, like some awarenesses of. Here's all the answers. Here's information. Here's universal truth. These are the things that you know to help other people find those same places within themselves, because it's for all of us to access.
Yeah,
It just
yeah,
takes the right tools, which is psilocybin, right?
right.
It's expanding your consciousness. That's really all it's doing. And it gives you some health benefits too, I think. It
Hmm.
accelerates some parts of your vision and all that. But I had these visions, I had these awakenings. It changed my entire life. 2018 and 19, I was shown to keep speaking truth about mushrooms, keep posting on social media and sharing truth and speaking from heart space always. And here comes people now that I don't know asking me to help them or to help them integrate what they've just experienced. I had this experience with DMT. I had experience with LSD. What I was showing these things, what does it mean? And
Are
so
they
I can
find
help with that.
are they finding
Yeah,
you on Facebook, or are they finding you on Instagram?
everywhere.
Everywhere.
All of, in fact, people here that are in my town. They go to the place like I get my haircut, and the two ladies that work there, they have my business cards. And someone mentions mushrooms, and they're like, "Oh, you need to know my friend Michou," and they hand them a card.
For
You
the
want to talk about
viewers,
mushrooms?
how would the viewers find you?
On Facebook, my name is Michou Olivera, so you would spell Michou, then
Olivera, yeah, and
Olivera.
we'll post that at the end of this. Am I
Instagram is Michou413. I mean, yeah, it's just you can search my name on Google actually, and a lot comes up.
okay?
So
Hey, Mishu, am I coming through clear? Can you hear me?
crystal, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
crystal
Let's
clear.
let's go back a little bit, and for the viewers that really don't know, they've heard of magic mushrooms. People have heard of the term psilocybin, but what is it actually? Where does it come from? And tell a little bit of the backstory of psilocybin and magic mushrooms.
Psilocybin is basically the chemical compound in psychoactive mushrooms, specifically in a cubensis variety. Psilocybin cubensis is a type of mushroom that's psychoactive. Is about, I don't know, well over 100 strains, kind of like cannabis in a sense, where each strain is going to have a different physical property, possibly similar to the other cubensis varieties, but it might have a little bit of a different color or a different type of a stipe. Usually the potencies are going to be different. Psilocybin is part of a bigger chain. So psilocin is what psilocybin converts into once it's being digested by your body. And the psilocin is the actual active ingredient. So is baeocystin. They're all part of the compounds that come together to have the effect of basically linking your consciousness. Your expansion is basically your hippocampus, your frontal cortex, areas of your brain that don't normally communicate are now communicating, and they're now communicating in a way that is going to enhance awareness and your consciousness around who you are and what you've been through, not in just this life, but all your lives, all yourselves, all
Yeah,
your parents' parents. So your generational self, your generational trauma, your awareness into all of this stuff is very acute and heightened, especially in larger doses.
hmm,
But even on microdoses, we can still have that. But psilocybin, magic mushrooms are ancient. I would believe they're not even from this world, they're probably from outer space. They've been around for millennia,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah,
They've been around for many, many generations. Many cultures have used them for wisdom. There's a lot of really cool books out. The Road to Lucius is a great one. You should check it out. It's I forget the author. It's on Amazon right now. I think if you like $14, you can pick that up. But
to
it's a really good
Aloysius.
book.
How do you
Road to
spell?
Lucius, yeah.
How do you
It's
spell that?
ELEUSIUS, something like that. I have to look it up. It's
Okay.
it's also an audiobook, and it's basically talking about Eleusis is a city in Greece, and they used to hold ceremonies. They think it was with either mushrooms and or ergo, which is a fungus from, was it Claviceps purpea, which is essentially a rye plant. It would get a rye mold, and that mold was psychedelic in the form of ergo, and they would make things with that. They would make drinks and things that people would drink. They would do a mass, like a big sit in, be in, and drink this stuff and have visions and different things. People would trek from around the area to go and have this once a year thing with the higher reaching officials of Greece, and they would
Mhm.
come up with ideas and all that. But yeah, it's a cool book.
Yeah,
You should check
yeah.
it out.
Okay, I definitely will.
Yeah.
So why? So, in your opinion, why is this such a hype now? It's been around for a very long time, and people are very familiar with magic mushrooms, and people have tried, and like you say, people did it to just typically trip, right, and have an experience. But now, why is it coming around again and with such um passion and push to help people now? I mean, it's interesting that big pharma is getting into the game, and government is getting into the game, because there's some. So what is it about psilocybin, and what is it doing? What is the game changer here?
So one of the main game changers that I'm seeing from people that I'm actually working with, like personally, is that the benefits of mushrooms are greater than Western psychology, like immediately. And the integration that's coming during and after these experiences is also greater than Western psychology. And it's cheaper and
So
it's
what do you
real,
mean by that?
it's
It's great.
tangible.
What do you mean by
So
that
Western
greater?
psychology has had 50 years to do its work, to give its healing, its aid to people with mental situations happening, mental challenges. I'm not even going to say illnesses because they're not even illnesses. It's people with lack of connection, lack of self-awareness, self-realization, right? Lack of self-mastery. They are also probably suffering from trauma too. So there's all these unhealed things happening. And what they need is direction. They don't need someone to sit there and have whole condensating space for them, because they're not giving any type of anything to somebody. They're just regurgitating what they're saying, and then here, take this, so you don't have to feel anything. That was never the answer. So you have Western psychology that has failed people for 50 plus years, and they're still doing it. They're still doing it, and they're still saying, here, you have there's no serotonin shortage in your brain. That's been ruled as a myth now, because there never was a chemical imbalance, right? It's a lack of connection to who you are. So mushrooms immediately are going to give you access to that, and to the bigger awareness of so many things you don't even want to know the answers to. Here's collective consciousness. Here is universal truth. Here's all these things about yourself as a person that, hey, you know what? Like, you should probably know about yourself, because you're out in the world mingling with people. Maybe you'd be better off if you were to be self-aware in a way that was, you're checking your bullshit, you're growing through some trauma, you're doing your personal work, right? Your shadow work. You're doing these things. Psychology in the Western sense isn't helping you address any parts of any of this stuff, because it doesn't go beyond its consciousness is a walnut. And here comes mushrooms. Your consciousness, you can't go to a therapist now. So here's what happened to me. You can't go to a therapist. You can get some good pearls, but your consciousness now, your awareness is larger than the therapist. They're learning from you now. And I'm just sharing my experience, because now I'm solving in front of my therapist. Things are coming up, and I'm solving them on the fly because of my consciousness. Now people that I'm working with doing the same thing. Their consciousness is expanding. They're understanding, hey, wait a minute, like, I'm not really depressed. I just don't know who I am. I don't know how to go. So now they're having things happen in their lives that 20 years of therapy couldn't have even done in a weekend, because they took 2 grams of mushrooms and sat with somebody who helped them integrate their experience. And now they have awareness into this hurt that's been hurting for all these years. So now they're not in that space. Now they're having joy again. They have a connection to who they
So
are.
so
And it's
you're on
not perfect, but
that's interesting, because like you just, and I've read some things about those types of stories where people that have been on all kinds of medication to deal with like depression or
yep.
PTSD, soldiers dealing with PTSD, and it just keeps them balanced enough, but they still have their ups and downs. They're very depressed. So,
Yeah,
but then there's been some stories where some people have taken psilocybin one time, and it's been transformative for them. So, and you just said
sure, sure.
you've worked with similar people that have been dealing with stuff for 20 years, and you've
Oh
seen
yeah,
that kind of experience as well.
yeah. I mean, I'm working with a range of people from 18 to 82. So I hear stories, and I've seen and I've watched people in their varying challenges have amazing things happen for them. Like, and they're not all like, oh, it's just like this magic. First of all, it's not a magic pill. You're gonna take a mushroom, or you're gonna take mushrooms over a course of time, and they're gonna show you things that are meant for you to see, for you to unpack, and for you to forgive and love and do the work around, and then let it go, which is the whole way, is
Hmm.
to take it in, embrace it, learn what you can, accept, forgive, and release with love, right? And appreciation. Let it
Hmm.
go. And this is constant. So the work begins when you have awareness. And it's not like, oh, you're going to take mushrooms and all of a sudden your whole life is going to be better. You're going to feel your heart again, which might feel like your life is going to be better because now you have hope again. Because now
which
you
is kind of
feel,
which is actually kind
which
of
is
the
big.
opposite of psychotropic drugs, right? Because you
Well,
hear
they're
people
dissociative.
you hear people that take psychotropic drugs and they say, I feel numb, I can't cry anymore. They're
Well,
more
yeah.
disconnected to their
Yeah,
heart,
and
right?
that's the thing with, unfortunately, Western medicine has given people the idea that you can take a pill and it'll, things will get taken away for you. And
Hmm.
mushrooms is the opposite. You're gonna take mushrooms and you're gonna be giving yourself back in a big way, where you're gonna have like access to parts of yourself that you never knew existed, that you're gonna have to get to know and introduce yourself to, and sit down and get to and forgive and start to see who you are, like on a scale that it's hard and it's beautiful at the same time. And so you have to accept yourself, all
Yeah.
of yourself,
Well,
and
you
it's
said it,
okay.
Michou,
So
you said it in the beginning, and I liked what I loved what you said, because when you started to dive back into it, you were saying that it got you connected to your heart.
yeah,
And it's like
that's the
you're
first
talking
place.
about how you were angry, how you were depressed, how you had
Always,
all
yeah,
of this stuff that you were getting your ass kicked in certain situations just
yeah,
based on how you looked, and just
yeah,
competing with all of that. But yet then you could,
everywhere.
but then I can imagine just feeling, just being one of those people, and that doesn't feel connected to anyone, so you're
No,
isolated and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with me, right? Because that's the tape that
aside from
happens.
the appearance.
And exactly,
Exactly.
that's the tape that occurs,
Hmm.
right? To people that suffer
Yeah,
trauma. What's wrong with me? I'm not like everybody else. So then you self-isolate more, then the
yeah,
pain becomes greater, then you become
yeah,
more
that was my
depressed
life.
and anxious, and then you become angry at yourself because you're not
Yeah.
like anybody else.
Oh,
And then all of a
I was a
sudden
wreck.
you're like going, wait a minute, there's this plant medicine out there that can help me get connected to my
I
heart
didn't think
again.
of it that way though. This
Yeah.
wasn't like, mushrooms weren't like, oh yeah, let me connect you to your heart. That were like, no, let's go and have fun. You can take another path of having a good time, because for me it was always about having fun. So I took mushrooms in the beginning to just have a good time, to take a break from
Sure. Yeah.
being drunk instead. Like I would rather just take a break. So when I took mushrooms in the beginning, it was like, oh, I'm gonna have a really intense time because I am clean. I've never taken antidepressants. I don't trust them. So I just drank instead. I would drink a ton. So when I took mushrooms, I would see and feel like super intense stuff. Like even on just 3.5 grams, I would have huge experiences, and I would come out of them with all this awareness and realization. And for the next couple of weeks, I felt really, really powerful in myself. I felt really good. I felt clear in my mind. My intuition was like really sharp and like really excellent. And so I just kept looking forward to those experiences. And I did them enough times. I feel like that um, certain aspects of that, the vision that you have, like the awareness, you just stay like that after a while.
So
You
it
really
seems like, it
you really
sounds to
do.
me what
So
you're describing is it cleared the clouds, and there was a
it
sense of
enhanced my
clarity.
mind.
There
It
was a
enhanced
sense of
my
clarity.
consciousness
Yeah.
everywhere though. Like not just in my mind. It was like soul,
Yeah.
spirit, like everything is clear. So it will enhance your mind. It will expand your consciousness beyond what you're. I think a lot of people aren't really prepared for it, but
Yeah.
they
What is
should
it?
be.
How is that working to enhance your mind? Do you know what it's doing? Do we know? That-
Because it's connecting your portions of your mind that don't normally have any kind of connection, that they're separately functioning. Your
Okay.
hippocampus, your frontal cortex, like they're in your mind, but they're not actively like lead in, enmeshed doing operations together. So you're having these areas of your consciousness that are responsible for consciousness congruent and functioning together. And so your awareness, your intuition, mushrooms are helping people by expanding their consciousness because of the way the psilocybin works in your brain. So it's linking in your serotonin receptor, everything's connected. It's giving you more, I guess, access to your personal truths. Your personal truths are your access to quelling your sadness and your depression, your anxiety, your lack of feeling connected, all going to change
So,
dramatically.
so your depression and your anxiety and the
Go on
people and
for
the people
years
that
now.
you've dealt with that have come to you to work through some of those symptoms, you've seen psilocybin be just a tremendous
It's
game
changed
changer
my
for them.
life. It changed my life, and it changed people that do it in a way. I feel like there's ways to do it where you're just taking it to get high, and you can still do that, and still you might gain minimal kind of things that happen to you, minimal awarenesses and such. When you're taking it in a way that really is focusing in on the back end effect of what's coming through for you, or in the moment, like if you're taking a little bit larger 2 or so grams of amount, so you're actually present and in the moment of the experience. If it's bigger, you're going to gain insights to your areas of growth, of your opportunities. So when you're able to focus in on what those are personally for you, if you have someone there who's with you to talk you through, I'm able to be, when someone's on mushrooms, because I've done them so much, I'm
Yeah.
in that space with them. I feel where they're at, not only because I'm psychic, but because I've done mushrooms enough times that I'm just open that way now. So I'm sitting with someone, I'm with their experience, and I'm knowing if they're sad, it's your grandmother, it's this, it's crazy. I don't even ask why I can do this. I know it's helpful to other people. So the fact that I can is good enough for me. I'm not going to even dig it apart, but I'm helping people to connect to their traumas in psychedelic space. When they're coming out of that, the last hour or so, you're more aware, even if it's just a little couple of grams of a journey that you're on, you're more aware, but you're still in that space. You're still in that collective consciousness. You're still in the universe kind of space with mushrooms. So your questions, your existential questions, your all the questions that you don't normally have access to, you're just spilling forth questions now, and someone there to help you to navigate and decipher those things that are coming through for you. You can turn around and apply that back to your life and watch your life now explode with beautiful things, with abundance, with the love of your life, with your best job, with wait, I shouldn't be living here. I need to be living here instead. Like your life is going to explode with beautiful stuff when you're listening to the messages all around you. And mushrooms are literally the key for that. And they will help you to hone in on what's there for you. Everywhere around you are gifts. If you're not listening and you're just going through life with blinders on, missing everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
mm-hmm.
So we've been talking about the impact that psilocybin has on people that have suffered with mental health for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my question, I guess, is it for everybody?
No,
Who
definitely
isn't
not.
it for? Who isn't it for?
You know what? I think that there are people who have every right to stay in their wherever that is in their groove. I'm not going to say rut because I don't want to be judgmental
Well,
of
here,
someone
no, but
else's.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking, are there people out there that it just won't work for? Like sometimes you can take an antidepressant, 5 people can take that antidepressant and it only works for one person, right? So there's like, and then everybody has to explore to figure out which cocktail of medications that a doctor will
Right.
prescribe to them will work before something actually works. Does
Sure.
psilocybin, can it work for everyone?
I've seen it not work for people, but I also feel like those people might have had like they've already taken enough SSRIs to have nuked their serotonin receptor in such a way that those type of substances, classic psychedelics like LSD or mushrooms, who are working with serotonin receptor space, are not going to work in the same way. So it just means that their serotonin receptor is not really up for the it's not up for that. But there are, I mean, I feel like I've worked with people who've had drug resistant depression, and mushrooms are like drug resistant my ass. They're like right in there, and the person is experiencing, you know, connection with themselves. Like, so I think mushrooms are definitely not for everybody on a number of different fronts. Like, just because some people don't want to have their consciousness expanded, they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't, if they don't want to take it, don't let them take it. Uh, Other people, maybe their serotonin receptors totally fried from too many SSRIs that they've taken for 30 or 40 years. Those people are probably not going to benefit too well from classic psychedelics. So, you know,
Do you feel, in your opinion, that people that have, like, let's say somebody who's been on an SSRI for 20 years and all of a sudden they're hearing all this hype about psilocybin and
mm-hmm.
LSD and MDMA, and how all of this research is showing such remarkable, progress, that and they'd like to give it a try. Do you think that because they've been on these psychotropic drugs for a long period of time, that it's going to hinder their experience with some of these new plant medicines coming
It's
to the forefront?
not that I'm seeing. I'm working with people like that who have gotten away from their prescription to try mushrooms, for example, or even to try LSD microdosing. So it's really, I think it depends on the person and their own like physical, I don't know, like physical makeup as far as what their sensitivities are. And a lot of people who have had, I mean, most of those people are very bitter because they have been on those SSRIs for 20 some plus years and they've had no benefits. They've been feeling numb and they have had a lack of connection to what they need to connect to, which is the area of trauma that they're having an issue with or having a sadness around or whatever it is, right? So most of these people, I'll say 80% of the people that I'm working with right now, some of which are actually therapists themselves, are having great responses with microdosing and with macrodosing. So, you know, it depends on the person. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
I've had a lot of people that I work with are super resistant, very type A, very in charge, very much gonna, no, I don't want to trip. Oh, I don't want to have like a back. And they have to take much more, but they will get to the place where they need to be to have their catharsis, to work through what they're going through. It's really intense to watch. It's really beautiful. It lasts hours and hours. I also sit with these people for several hours, 7, 8 hours, while they are in their space of being completely out of their capability to function on their own. So they need supervision, but they're doing deep, painful work. So it's really powerful. But
Yeah.
it's, I think it depends on someone's someone's interest in really going within is really personal, and you don't know from one moment to the next. Like someone comes to you and is like, listen, I need to do really deep work and I'm super resistant to everything. Well, you have the conversations, you hopefully have, access to, or they have access, to medicine that's going to be helpful for their cause, because not all medicine is the same. So some medicine might not be as potent as they need for them to go deeper in. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of factors there, but I think um, there people coming from 20 plus years of SSRI use, as long as they're not really on those anymore and they've tapered off in the correct way that their doctors have prescribed or have suggested, for them to, will find great success with psilocybin medicine. I do believe so. If it's
Okay.
also done with somebody who is able to help them integrate, because a lot of this is about talking out what you're going to feel as a result. It's not just about taking a pill and having it just magically make your day better. You will feel better. You will feel a lot more energy. You'll feel more connected to your heart, and your mind's going to be really open. Your ears, you're going to hear music better. Visually, you're going to see colors a lot better. But you're going to be given access to things that need your attention verbally. And for you to work with somebody who understands the language, your therapist isn't going to understand unless they've done a lot of psychedelics themselves. The therapist isn't going to understand what you're talking about. They're not
Yeah.
going to understand it in the same way that someone like, say, for example, myself or another guide who's done the work can literally hear what you're saying And it's like, this is a language from other psychedelic users and experiencers. We understand this. Most people who don't are going to find it really interesting. They probably take a lot of notes, like my therapist would do in 2019 when I was having my experiences with psychedelics, especially if we lots of large amounts of mushrooms. This person was giving me very little in what I could utilize for myself. She was more holding space for me while I utilized my own stuff. But the people from 20 plus years of usage of a medicine to help them are really bitter right now, is what I'm hearing. And they're
Mm-hmm.
not happy, and they're excited that there is something out there that might give them hope. Whereas this medicine that they talked about 20 years ago that they started taking to give them similar hope, there was never any kind of, I feel like there's never a promise of this is going to fix you. It was more of a, this will take away some of your suffering, which kind of sucks because I feel like that medicine gave the opposite of what it should have given, which was an access to who we are,
Mm-hmm.
and not taking that away, and made us complacent to just suffer. And then we have therapists lined up. They're just going to sit and listen to you vent about suffering and offer small access into ways you can actually fix that or solve that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mushrooms give you the access in yourself to see what is your, where your challenges are, where is your pain. It's going to point
Mm-hmm.
you right to it. And that's the bad trip that people experience on occasion. They get pointed to a lot of their areas of shame and pain, regret, sorrow, and those are hard to deal with. So all at once, that's a bad experience for a minute. Yeah,
So,
but then
so
it's a
the
gift.
so the bad trip is actually
It's your
beneficial to
psyche.
healing.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Mm-hmm.
painful, especially when it's all at once. You might be shown like, here's several things of yourself that really need your attention at one time. And that's kind of a lot. And then it's shame. Now you're ashamed. Now it's, you're feeling a lot of things that are really, they're not really savory, but they're not going to kill you. It's just more of an existential comeuppance, basically. You're like being introduced to parts of yourself that are not very attractive, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And that really needs your attention because you're all combined as a whole person. So how can you really love yourself if you're not embracing all of yourself? So mushrooms are going to show you who you are so that you can embrace the whole package, right? The
So,
whole
yeah.
thing.
So you
So
can become aware
yeah,
of what those parts are that you're denying, that you're rejecting,
just
and then
comes out in other behavior that's not very savory for other people, you know?
yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah,
That's cool. Um,
yeah.
what is the when you're working with somebody in the what is, explain the integration process.
Okay. So integration is literally you're listening to someone share their lived experience. Usually this, in this context, I'm talking about you're integrating a psychedelic experience, whether that's a microdose experience or a macrodose or a mesodose, which is a middle dose. You're gonna basically listen to somebody talk about what came through for them, what they're having feelings around as a result of taking a substance. Usually, if it's in a microdose sense, it's going to be probably I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, I've had people come through with pretty profound microdosing experiences, even on 0.25 of a gram. Like they'll have profound insights into areas of trauma, or hey, I'm having a realization into I was probably raped when I was a kid, or these are powerful things. Like people are going about their day, and all of a sudden it's dawning on them that there is something that's really big in their life that needs to be revisited again, right? Or there's an awareness that maybe that just wasn't an awareness or some sort of weird thought that I had or a dream that I had. That actually was a real thing, right? And I blocked it out after 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. So integration, you're taking somebody's experience and literally you're unpacking it. And you're allowing them to unpack it. And ideally what you're going to do is we're always here to put people back into themselves again.
So
I'm
the
not a healer,
Michou, the
right? So
integration is the integration after the experience,
during and after, if you're doing a
during
big
and
journey,
after. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
ideally during, like in the last part of it, yeah. But integration is you're taking someone, you're letting them share their story, and you're helping to decipher how they can best utilize that knowledge, that insight, that those feelings to work through and to apply it to themselves. How can it apply to you? Because it's coming from you. There's a message that is meant to go back. It's meant to go back into you. So guides, people like myself are doing this work. We're not healers. We're healers of ourselves, right? But we're there to show other people, to remind themselves, because the mushrooms are going to be reminding you too. But the integration is more of a, let's remind each other, you know these things already. It's basically us pointing someone back to themselves, letting them solve their work, solve their equation. That's what's missing. So when you're struggling out in life and the therapist hands you some pill that shuts you down, your ability to do that work just went. So thanks a lot. Now here's mushrooms. You're going to be able to connect the dots and then some. You're going to connect the dots of a lot of different things. So the integration is literally, someone's having an awareness, or multiple, usually multiple awarenesses into trauma, things that happen in their lives, past generational trauma, and the integration is how it relates back to them. And our job is to basically really paint the bright, broad picture of what this is for real, like what this translates into from mushroom like messages or whisperings, I like to call them. It's like
Hmm.
a little whisper in the back of your mind. That's what psilocybin will do. It'll like light up your awareness, your intuition is like tingling, and like all these little things are going off. And it's a whisper of a message that comes through. So what we're doing literally is just, hey, this is what this translates into. This is what it's applying to this, applying to this. This is, so it's pointing them back into their area to look and to unpack for their growth, their piece of soothing, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
How long?
Necessary.
Yeah.
So sorry.
How long does the experience last when you take somebody through that process, and then they
It
take,
can,
and what is the amount of milligrams that people do take when they first experience mushrooms for the first time, for example?
most people that I work with are going to take 2 grams to 2.5 grams, because the
Okay.
medicine that I work with is really potent. You don't need to have a lot of it. So in this area, it's basically been due to some work that I've done with a group of folks, Decriminalized Nature, Massachusetts, Space Daters for Natural Medicine. We've done some work to help to basically almost a decriminalization, but to lower prioritize entheogenic plants in East Hampton, Northampton, Cambridge, and Somerville, Massachusetts. So when people come here to journey with me, the mushrooms are a gift, because we can gift, we can consume, and we can cultivate. So I've learned how to grow my own, and I teach others how to do the same also. So the mushrooms that I have access to, very, very potent in small amounts. Someone's first experience is really important to be able to let them experience it in a full way without it taking their whole face off, because I don't want people to be afraid of mushrooms. You can become afraid on really big doses. Some people are really afraid to be taken out of themselves. Some people that I work with have never even drank alcohol. They've done no substances, and they don't like to be taken out of control. So they need a very less overwhelming experience, you could say.
Hmm.
So they'll do 2.5 grams, which is still enough to really feel the medicine coming through. It's definitely enough to change your spatial awareness and your ability to see colors and to hear music more intensely. You're definitely going to be connected to more heart space. And you might be connected to some challenging aspects that need your attention and your love, basically. Some sad events in your life possibly might come through that you're not allowing yourself to grieve enough. But yeah, I mean, usually 2 grams is a good amount. I work with people with much more though, 6 grams and up that really need
Hmm.
to do some powerful work. But there is no real need to do the bigger doses to have religious or breakthrough experiences. I
Yeah.
personally have had them on far less. If the mushrooms are strong enough, you can have really profound experiences in 2 and 3 grams. Absolutely. I've had them.
Okay. Well, let me ask you
I've had
this.
them myself.
So
Yes.
there's so many different versions of psychedelics out there, and I'm hearing that psilocybin seems to be, from what I've read, one of the most safe
Hmm.
um,
Definitely.
psychedelics available out there. But
Hmm.
people are heading down south to try ayahuasca. There's peyote. There's iboga. There's
Hmm.
LSD, the DMT. What's the difference? What is the difference with psilocybin
There's a
and the
lot of
rest of
differences.
these? I mean,
There's a lot of differences. Subtle, but large also. So okay, so there's a lot of differences between ayahuasca, for example, has a totally different chemical chain. It actually has a DMT molecule. I
Yes.
don't know a ton. I mean, I've never done it for starters. I've had curiosity about it, but I've never been called to do that work just yet. I feel that my work with mushrooms is still in its infancy, and mushrooms have asked me, I guess, kind of in a way to not really ask me, but I'm inspired to remain focused in on that energy of that medicine. I will also dabble on occasion with LSD microdosing. They're very different, but the effects of the microdosing of it are really awesome. LSD is obviously a chemical, so it's a synthesized compound, usually of ergo fungus.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to be a very more speedy kind of experience. It's going to feel a little more energetic on a like a caffeine level almost.
Which
The
one is that?
feeling is
What?
synthetic. That's LSD.
Okay.
LSD. It's also a really great analgesic for pain, so it's going to have more analgesic properties than say a mushroom microdose. Doesn't really have that. LSD is also going to feel. It's going to feel more synthetic. Mushrooms feel organic and earthy. They have a more of a gravitational pull down. And
Hmm.
LSD, since it's synthetic, it has a more of an elevated social feel to it, like in a microdose. I'm talking about like zero point 0.2 micrograms or
Yeah.
whatever, like much less than a full hit. But yeah, so I don't know. I've never taken DMT. They're all very different. They have a different chemical chain, different compound that's going to make them targeting your various receptors, whether that's your serotonin receptor or your 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 opioid receptors, or your
Yeah.
cannabinoid receptors, like whichever it's going to target. So it's going to have a different effect based upon the receptor that it's targeting, right? So psilocybin is targeting your serotonin receptor um, quite well, in fact. And I think because of the organic properties of it, it's going to have a different experience than say ayahuasca or even ibogaine or even DMT. DMT is an offshoot of ayahuasca in a sense, but it's a shorter, more abridged experience. From what I've heard, 10 to 20 minutes is about max. Not everyone even has a breakthrough or even gets to see the little machine elves or the men or whatever the hell the entities.
Yeah.
I don't, I'll try it someday, I guess, when it lands in front of me as a gift. I'm sure I'll try it at some point. But honestly, I don't have any real interest to try that. I barely even do gigantic doses of mushrooms anymore. I just don't feel like I need it right now,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's great. I
Have
did a
you heard
lot of work for, yeah.
have you heard about the toad?
Oh yeah, I've worked with a few clients that actually have done both Cambo and Bufo. I have no interest in doing those medicines. Also, just from an environmental standpoint, like
Mhm.
not a good idea either, because this is an animal and it's basically killed for its toxins. So I don't feel a pull. Also, listening to my clients' experiences with both of those, horrific experiences I'm hearing.
Wow.
So
Okay.
mushrooms don't make me nauseous, and I don't get ill when I take them. So for me, to the idea of you're
Okay.
gonna physically put yourself through an experience that's gonna make you violently ill, I don't feel that I need to do that purging work right now. Like, I don't feel connected
Yeah.
to doing that at this
That's
time.
what
When
ayahuasca
that's yeah,
does.
oh yeah, ayahuasca does it. So does ibogaine.
Okay.
Most of those big ones are gonna, yeah, I've done a lot of research on all of them, but I'm not feeling, I feel mushrooms, my work with mushrooms is still very much underway, and I don't need to clutter my mindscape with other substances of that type of a realm. So, yeah,
Hmm. Okay.
yeah.
So with the work that you've done, when you break it down, I'd say the top three mental health conditions that we see in the US are depression, anxiety, and bipolar. And then there's others that follow. With the big three, and there's a lot of people on medications um, to cope and deal with those symptoms. Um, is there a mental health illness that psilocybin works with better than the other? Like, for example, will it be more effective with depression as opposed to anxiety, or will it help more with people that are suffering with PTSD as opposed to depression? Is there a particular area that you've seen a lot of success with in using psilocybin?
Yourself. All of those things are connected to yourself. They're all targeted. They're all going to be part of the same whole, which is yourself. So as a whole, all of those areas of challenge for people are going to be targeted. So it's not like you can say, oh, well, this pill targets this one thing. Psilocybin targets your whole entire self, your whole entire being. So as a result, when you wake up in the morning full of gratitude in your heart and you look around and see what's positive in your life instead of what's shitty in your life, like these are the things that psilocybin starts to go to work on immediately in your mind. It's changing, it's rewiring your 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 mindscape. Essentially it's getting put back together in a way that's cohesive and comes from gratitude and love and hope instead of horrible darkness and misery and gloom and doom. Like you are coming from a different space in yourself. So all the areas that you come from with depression, anxiety, bipolar, that's an interesting one. I'm curious to see more, I guess, results from people's testing. They got to be doing testing. I'm assuming with Johns Hopkins and over across the pond and the Beckley Institute. I'm sure they're doing lots of testing around the world for various mental challenges for people. I've worked with a few people who have done some work with psilocybin who are bipolar. They've done a very small amount. They have not done any bigger doses. That doesn't feel like something that I'm safely covering. I would rather just do someone with help someone with microdosing. If they have an interest in doing a larger dose, that's not something that I'm fully comfortable with at this time because
Sure.
they might have an episode that isn't a safe episode, and that's not something that I want to be part of that for their own safety. I don't want to facilitate that. So, but I think for depression and anxiety, from what I've seen in myself, um, you don't come you don't come from a place of depression. Not that you don't have it, or not that you don't have bad days, but you have the awareness as to why the day is bad. So immediately you're given the opportunity to go within and to really be a participatory part of your life, like immediately. So you get to see what's bothering you and then act on it. Is it something that you need to be upset about? Probably not. So it's maybe something that you need to look at that's here to teach you something, or an avenue to an unexplored opportunity for you. Like these are all they're all signs for you to do something. Like anything that pops up in your life that sucks, there's usually a blessing behind it. Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Handle what's difficult, right? So your anxiety is you worrying too much about the future. So being present, mushrooms are helping you stay present. They're helping you stay in the now, which is the most important part of being alive, is to be part of the current experience, right?
Yeah.
So your anxiety immediately is squashed when you're knowing the priority of being present. Like that's the whole point of enjoying your life. So mushrooms put you in the context, into really direct touch with what's important and how to live in a way that is maximal, is the most benefit. Like it's outstanding.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm teaching people. This is what people are being shown, and I'm more like, yeah, trust that that message that's being shared with you, that way of thinking and feeling when you're going through your day. That's gratitude life. That's coming from your heart. That's living in present, right? So
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah.
Trust it. So yeah, all those things are going to be helped. Bipolar, we'll see. I don't know,
Well,
but I would imagine maybe.
well,
Yeah.
one of the things that they're talking about too about psilocybin is that, people that get on medication to address their anxiety, depression, PTSD, they live on them. They got to take them daily. And then
Yeah, it's awful.
in psilocybin, what they're finding is that people are having incredible results by taking it one time, or not, where they don't have to rely on it or take it every day. So
It's
how
usually a couple
often?
times a week for
So
microdosing.
so microdosing would be like 2 times per week.
Roughly twice a week. You're going to microdose under 0.50 usually, depending on the potency of your medicine, of your mushrooms. You're going to usually 3 days apart. It's a Dr. James Fadiman's protocol. There's not really a set protocol though. It's pretty much what you feel best. So
Mm-hmm.
basically mushrooms are asking you to access yourself to find out when you take an amount, say you're starting out brand new, 0.15, 0.20, take it for a week. Take it one day, like a Saturday, and then take it again like on a Wednesday or a Tuesday. A couple days in between so you can check in with yourself, right? To integrate what you're experiencing. And then that third day, you'll take your second dose, your 0.20, your 0.25. You'll see how you feel. And do you want to take a larger amount next week? Do you feel like this is an adequate amount? Maybe it's too much. Maybe go back down to 0.15. But it's asking you to check in and to evaluate yourself all the time, right? It's asking you to do the work. So you're checking in, and you might be doing it for a month or two. Maybe you're gonna go and do it for a month and realize, hey, I need to do a bigger dose one time. So you'll switch to a macrodose once a month. I never got into microdosing mushrooms until recently because the macrodose was what I needed at the time I was in crisis. It gave me more access to answers of how to solve my life's horrible disaster of problems, like over and over again. I was having all these things come up in my life, and learning how to navigate those with mushrooms was life-saving. So the bigger doses are going to give you more access to deal with trauma and crisis. The smaller doses are more for a daily mind uplift, for a spirit uplift, right? For access to more flow state.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
And how
yeah,
often,
twice a
I mean,
week.
or what time of day when you're microdosing would you take the mushrooms? What time of day?
Morning
In the
is
morning.
best.
Okay.
Ideally, because they have a lot of energy. So when you're taking them at night, a lot of people find that they're going to be staying up, but they don't want to stay up. So in the morning with your breakfast is ideal. And you're weighing out your dose. You're weighing it out with the scale. You got to get a scale that weighs under a gram. And calibration weights also very important because you want to make sure your scale is true. So you get a little thing of calibration weights. You make sure your scale is accurate before you weigh your doses out, so you know they're safe. Harm reduction, right? So you want to make sure that you weigh your doses with a scale that's true. So you check with calibration weights before you weigh every dose, right? With making sure that 1 gram weighs 1 gram, so forth and so on. And then you weigh out your dose for the day. Better than capsulating. Capsulating is not the best way. A couple of reasons. Your potency right off the bat when you grind up the mushrooms is losing potency. Too much exposure to UV light is not good for potency. It also doesn't like to be, it's just, the mushrooms want to be eaten whole out of respect for the medicine, right? Another reason is that if you have a capsule, you're set with that dose. And maybe you don't want to take always 0.25. Maybe you want to have the ability to flux higher or lower because depending on your day is what your dose should be. If you're having a more difficult day, a little bit more is better for your expansion of why you're having a bad day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having a really good day, maybe your dose doesn't have to be as high. Maybe this needs to be 0.15 or 0.20. So now you have the ability to take your mushroom and break off what you want, weigh for the day, and take your dose accordingly, which is the way it should be done. You're supposed to dose according to where you're at, not just like a pill from Western, whatever, big pharma, whoever. Here's my dose of, my 0.25 of this medicine, and I'm just going to hope for the best. No,
Yeah.
mushrooms by nature, they want you to interact with them, make a ritual of it, and yourself, make a ritual of yourself. Also, while you take this medicine, it's asking you to connect to it and yourself. And then the gift is what you get after. The gift is this consciousness that's exploding,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's going to be like the big, you know, game changer for psilocybin is that, for people that do microdose it,
Mhm.
compared to taking a drug every day of the week, as opposed to like, oh, okay, I can do this once a week, twice a week, maybe
There's
three
no
times
reason
a
for
week
it.
at the most. Maybe some people will
Yeah.
only take it once a month, right?
That was where I got
Depending.
my growth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like
Yeah.
going, it's like people
Yeah.
don't want to be reliant on
No,
these meds because that's what they are today. And you just keep
it's
filling.
terrible.
Yeah, it
It's
really
terrible.
is. It really is.
And
And
it's
there's
bad for
just
your body on top of that. I mean, my
yeah,
God.
yeah, there's got
Your
to be
body doesn't
some,
need that.
and that's what makes, all of these new plant medicines that are really getting a lot of recognition right now so interesting to me. So fascinating. Then to hear your
Oh
story,
yeah.
just to hear your stories and your incredible breakthrough and how And you said that you're just kind of it helped evaporate the depression and anxiety just through the process
I
of.
wake, I don't, I have woken up with depression or anxiety in, I'm gonna say since probably 2000, even in 2019 when I was homeless, living out of my car with my dog here in up in Greenfield in a Brattleboro area. Like I was still like I knew somehow I was gonna be okay. And even though my situation was dire, I was recovering from major shoulder surgery. I literally had nowhere to live except for I was staying with a friend's. Um, the 14-year-old son would go to their mom's every few nights in the neighboring town, and I could stay in the 14-year-old son's room. And then on the other nights, I had followers that were putting up money for me to get a hotel room up in Brattleboro, and I was going live once a week to ask for help financially. I needed my cell phone bill. I needed help with this. I have nothing. I can't work. Like I was literally at the mercy of the universe. And I just kept giving back what people would reach out to me asking for help. I was posting lives about mushrooms and how to take mushrooms and safely how to navigate the space. And I feel like because I was giving back, the universe was giving to me. And it kept working in the way that I kept getting what I needed. I found a place to stay in a woman's basement in Greenfield doing this work and figured out my business card in this basement. I literally was changing my entire life from depression and anxiety. I had some, I think, because I had done a lot of psychedelics in a short period of time. So it put me into a place of also spiritual awakening, blew me out of my self. I literally had identity ego death. Like I didn't know who I was. I was doing work in the basement about who I am and what my I started I saw myself not as my muscles and tattoos, which is how I'd always seen myself.
Mm.
Because I was a butch girl, right? And that was what we did. Like we prided ourselves upon our appearance, right? And I was a good looking butch, right? So that was my identity. But it wasn't my identity anymore. After taking all the mushrooms and had this awakening, I don't know what the hell I was doing. Like I felt like I had to relearn myself. So going out in public was horrible. I had a horrible social anxiety. I would sit in my car for hours. Sometimes when you go to the market, I would sit in my car for an hour and turn around and go home because I couldn't deal. And I was living in a basement with strangers, and it was a pandemic. My whole life was just like wanting to break, but I kept getting better and better and better and more clear and understanding and trusting what I've been shown. Right in the midst of a pandemic, I already knew like we're going to be fine as a whole. This is necessary. The pandemic is part of the spiritual awakening for everybody. Now we're all in it. And now psychedelics, here we go. Psychedelics opening consciousness. This is the paradigm shift. So this is what's happening. And it's supposed to happen like this all along because how are we going to survive? You can't survive. People have to be awake to survive. And this is, here we go. So I'm 2 steps ahead of other people. That's it. 2 steps ahead of someone else like yourself who's never really done maybe a large amount of mushrooms to have their consciousness expanded. Maybe that's what you're looking for, maybe not, but there's those of us out there who weren't looking for it and who were given the gift of awareness to help other people. So I
Mhm.
was never this person several years ago. I just only 8 years ago, I was totally different. And now my life has changed forever because of this medicine, because of mushrooms, basically. And so now I watch people go through the same thing of starting out miserable, super pessimistic, depressed, always anxious, really in a place of trauma, like living their trauma. And within a series of weeks, even, they're not in that space. They don't even sound the same. In a month's time, they don't even sound like the same person. They're laughing. They have joy. They're sharing all these experiences that they're having. That's like they're out of their house or doing stuff in their life. Like they've done stuff. They're transforming themselves, right? And it's
Mm.
because the mushrooms are helping them to see what there is there to transform. They're showing them themselves and what their areas of opportunity are here. This is yourself. Address yourself, basically,
It
is what's happening. So,
it sounds like it really you put on a whole different, pair of glasses, and how you
of
view
truth
everything. Yeah, and how it sounds like that's what it is. It's
is
like
truth.
your whole perception of everything around you just changes through the experience.
It does. Well, you change your consciousness. You cannot go through an experience where you're being awakened by mushrooms and not change yourself. Like There's no way you're not going to come through this without having, you're evolving into your higher self, because you're being forced to look at areas of yourself that are quite awful and they're really not that savory. And so you have to be accountable for your everything, for your bullshit, for your mistakes, for your horrible behavior with this person or with this, situation that was bad that you're directly responsible for. Like, you have to start having accountability for yourself. And when you do that, when you have humility, right, and vulnerability, that's when your vibration starts to rise. And so who you're attracting to your life is going to change. The types of people, the types of experiences, the types of opportunities, everything is going to change. And you're going to watch things happen for you. And conversely, you can watch the people around you go through those changes. Because what I hear now is I have people coming to me that, oh, my friend has been working with you for the last 2 months. And I'm watching them, her, him, have these changes in themselves that are amazing. I've been wanting to do this work too. Can you help me too? So this is how it works. It works like this. Like, I've been watching this now for a couple of years now, and it blows my mind. Like, this is something that I feel like a lot of people, mushrooms are not just because you have trauma. Mushrooms are not just to heal addiction. Mushrooms are not for any one particular thing of that genre of opportunities of healing and growth, right? Mushrooms, I think about more than anything else, are about expanding your consciousness. Because when you expand your consciousness, all the other stuff is in line and falling into place because of that. Now you have you have granted yourself access to yourself in the highest level to be able to do the most possible work within yourself. And I think the sad thing is that Western psychology has painted the picture that it's about taking a pill and something's going to go away magically. And we just don't have to do anything, and to look for our soothing and our caretaking outside of ourselves. Like, that's never supposed to be the way. Our caretaking is directly related to going within and doing the the introduction to your dark and horrible places. Like, you have to say hello to your whole self. People are sadly, they're of the mindset that they can just take a pill and that their lives are going to be better. I think that there's been an unfortunate seed planted by Western medicine or Western psychology that the soothing of ourselves is happening outside of ourselves, or even our culture. I think is very bent on looking for satisfaction and comfort away from inside of ourselves, or the answers are going to be coming from somebody else, when a
Mm.
lot of us already have our own answers as to the reasons why our lives are tricky or not as we want them to be. So I think a lot of truth is hard for people to really look at and to see. Mushrooms are going to put them in directly in the path of truth, which a lot of people are not going to like at all. They're going
Yeah.
to find that to be very challenging for their limited belief systems, which by mushrooms nature are going to blow them away.
Can you
They're
give
going
an
to.
Michou, can you give an example of like a truth that somebody um, may see that wouldn't want to see
Oh, of
during an
course.
experience? What's like
Yes.
something that would be common that comes up that they don't want to see, but there it is, and they got to deal with it.
A lot of most of people's motives are ego driven. So they're coming from a place of ego or insecurity and fear even. So they're going to be shown that a lot of where their position is in life or how they go through life is based upon ego. And so it's really difficult to look at that and to be aware of you're the contributing factor to where you are in your life and how you are in your life. So people are really going to, I guess, the people in your life, you're attracting who they are based upon who you are. So a lot of times people are your own mirror. So to be looking around at your life and realizing that direct you're directly responsible for all the things that are in your life. It's all because of who you are and how you are. So good and bad, some of that stuff is incredibly painful to look at for people. They are horrified to
Mhm.
learn that they're directly responsible for some, maybe their placement in their lives or where they are, what they don't have. A lot of times, maybe who they're with and why they're settling. A lot of things are going to come through that they're not happy to see. and they're just being complacent, and they can change like the person that they're with or not with or whatever. Like they have power more than they give themselves credit for, and they just think that there's just going to be some magical thing that's going to happen and change their lives. So I think being reminded of the fact that you have more power than you give yourself credit for, it makes
Hmm.
you have to stop being lazy. There's a lot of different
Oh.
things that are shown that are not
So
so savory.
it sounds like it really exposes the lie people live in.
Yeah, there's a lot of lies actually. Yeah, the whole 9 to 5 life of living for the weekend, that's one of the biggest ones, unfortunately. And it's hard to go back into society. And at this time, I still have a day job. I don't have enough clients just yet. I think by this time next year, I'll be able to probably have my own practice, just be my sole source of income. But to go back into the mainstream life and to know that this is not the way we're supposed to live, it's difficult to jump into the grind and spend time, Monday through Friday from 6 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon. I go and do someone else's work for their own vision and for their own thing, which I feel a huge that's hard for me. I want to dedicate more time to my own business and to going live and talking about mushrooms or talking about safe access or talking about integration or macrodosing or whatever it is. Like, but I want to give more out and I don't have the time for that. So I think that people getting into mushrooms are going to be their consciousness around, the lies of our culture. They're really painful to see that actually. It's really not fun. It's not fun to be aware of that stuff and have
Yeah,
to live in the world.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
mhm,
Yeah, that's terrific. Though I think that yeah,
in a sad way.
there's a lot of there's a lot of retreats that people go to really expose themselves to who they deeply are, and the retreats are designed to do that. So it helps people
Hmm.
get really, really real. And oftentimes after an experience like that, people are so pumped up and they feel so fantastic because all of a sudden they had this awakening of
Hmm.
embracing all aspects of who they are and
Yep.
really just owning the stuff that they've
Hmm.
always been trying to kind of like hide from others.
Yeah.
And now it's like
Yeah.
such a, it's almost like I can breathe now. I can
Yeah.
exhale. I can exhale because I can just be me. And
Exactly.
that concern about what everybody else thinks doesn't matter anymore. It still
Yeah.
does. It still does, but it doesn't matter as much.
It doesn't matter. That's what
Yeah.
mushrooms do for you too.
Yeah. Wow.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
how do you see this unfolding in 5 years from now? I mean, how do you see, where do you see psilocybin at and all these other psychedelics? Do you just think that you're going to be able to go to the doctor and get a prescription and he's going to go, here's a macro dose for you? How is it going
I
to
hope
unfold?
not.
What do
I
you
hope
think?
not.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
The the Western medical world should not medicalize any psychedelics because they're not going to have the people staff to do the integration work that's going to come from so many people taking them. They should let people have personal access, and do it traditional ways when you have somebody there to sit with you. That's been going on for centuries, for millennia. Literally, again, there's been people that have been doing this work for a very, very long time, holding space for people to take this medicine. It's a personal thing. It should never happen in a clinic. 5 years from now, myself, I'm going to have my own retreat. I'm going to have my own physical space that I'm going to host people here in Western Massachusetts to come and do their journey work. They can stay. It'll be like a psychedelic Airbnb, basically. People will be able to fly in from wherever they want from around the world. They can stay, and we will hold journeys there, group journeys there. I will hold also meetings there, get-togethers, psychedelic community stuff will be held there. It'll be in this area of Western Mass, but in the next 5 years, there's going to be a lot of places. I think a lot more cities and states are going to be starting to do more decriminalization and hopefully doing kind of similar to what Massachusetts is doing, which is just allowing you to gift, to consume, and to cultivate entheogenic plants is a good place to start. I don't know too much about what they're going to do with LSD, but I know that they should still continue to do their research that they were doing in the 50s and 60s with it because it showed very great promise. And it still does for people Some people just take better to LSD. The synthetic basis of it, I think, is more suitable for others. Those people like myself are pretty sensitive to all the things, so mushrooms are better because they're natural.
Mm.
Um, LSD is good, but it's still a bit more harsh on my body. I can feel it a lot more in a way that I don't necessarily love. But I think that things like mushrooms or ayahuasca, things of the earth, there's a lot of respect that should be had with those. They shouldn't necessarily just be made legal or to be made like fully decriminalized. There should be some stipulations around who has access, how it's done, how it's educated around. The integration part is huge, and I think if there's not enough people to integrate folks in the right way, you're going to have a lot of people that are having a lot of existential questions. And some, if you're doing a lot of psychedelics, you can have a lot of anxiety right afterwards. If you're someone who I see on these groups, people are doing, big amounts of stuff this weekend and then that next weekend. You got to give yourself weeks in between big doses like that, because you will spin yourself out. You will get anxiety more than you normally have, and it's not fun. And I worked myself, towards the end of 2019. Um, I was doing more research around alcohol and psilocybin and trying to see if I couldn't, on purpose, go back to drinking and then use a bunch of psilocybin to get it out of my system again, which I did. And so I was doing like an eighth every 2 weeks though. And I ended up again destroying my urge to drink. Um, Took a lot of mushrooms in a very short amount of time, and then I spent most of the first part of 2020 really trying to put the pieces back together, because I had had more visions, more profound awarenesses, and I was really in a space of it was a lot of work to put myself back together again. And I did not have anyone there to integrate with at the time. Beginning of 2020, there was not a big hubbub about any of this. So I was doing this work on myself, and I was integrating with myself basically. And
Hmm.
that was okay. That was necessary. I felt like I went to lots of places to get my information within myself, though. I did my own soul searching, my own just my own work. And but I wouldn't wish that for other people necessarily. I don't think everyone should have to do that. And I'm here to help others to have less of a hard time with integration of their experiences. So
All right.
yeah, it's
Well,
necessary.
well, thanks, man. That's really
Mhm.
all I have. I mean, we covered a lot.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm excited to have participated and to been allowed to share.
yeah, man. Well, Michou Olivera.
Michou
Um,
Olivera.
yeah, Michou Olivera, Self-Realization and Psychedelic Guide. Man, it's a pleasure to get to know you, and
Thank
thanks
you.
so much, man, for being here today and sharing your story.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
really you have a truly powerful story, and I'm so
Well, thank
happy
you.
that you're living your best life. I mean, and you're
Yeah.
giving back and you're helping, and you're back on your feet, and it looks like you're doing terrific. And
Well, thanks. I feel like I am.
yeah, man. So thank you so much for doing this, and that's
Indeed.
it. Well, we'll stay in touch, and have a
Sounds
great
great.
have a great rest of the day, Mishu.
Indeed, folks, if you have an interest in learning more about me, just put my name, Michou Olivera, into the Google search and you'll find lots of information about me. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Take
man.
care.
All right. Thank you.